at that point, you're not there to play it safe. Like if you're not taking risks, you're not competing.
It's empowering. I mean, anybody who's done a CrossFit workout, you finish your CrossFit workout and you're like, I'm on top of the world.
Yeah.
Like a hunger for competition and like that super intense structure, routine. I still had that desire.
Listen to the way people feel and the motivations for doing the things that they did. It was like they were describing me to a T.
I'm not trying to solve everything for you, but I know that sometimes you just need somebody to listen.
Learned the most is how to fill my cup by filling others.
Welcome to the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. Join me as I talk with passionate people about their life's failures and successes, and most importantly, what keeps them hungry for more. What's up, dogs? This week, I'm joined by Kate Williams, member of CrossFit T1 and founder of the Nourishment Mentality. We sit down to talk about her background with food and nutrition, discovering CrossFit, and finding her inner athlete. Tune in for another episode. I hope you enjoy. Alrighty, so tell me about the bootcamp class. Like, do you guys have a defined, difference between that and the CrossFit classes? Is that an easy way for people to get acclimated to CrossFit? Just tell me more about it.
Yeah. So I write all the workouts myself. I tend to gear it. It's less, I don't actually ever use barbells. It's much more simple movements for the most part. I try and throw some more complicated movements in just to work on working more body parts. And working on that agility kind of stuff. I like to throw, some windmills or Turkish get-ups in there just to give some challenge to them. But I, for the most part, keep things really simple. I always I say, I don't know what you did yesterday. I don't know what your workout was like yesterday, or because it's Sunday, if you worked in the yard all day, if you, what was going on with your life. So you kind of take this how you want, what you need today. Here's what I have for you. You use it in the way that you need it for you. But I keep it pretty simple, but I also try and kill them at the same time.
I love how you ended it right there. I'm really nice and sweet the whole time. I bring them in, this is a great space for you, but I want you to die a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. That's what they look forward to. They if it doesn't go the full hour, if they're not basically dead at the end, they're like, what did you do? That was nothing, Kate. I have plenty of members who will come in and, they'll turn a sit up into a GHD or, I don't usually give suggested weights because I don't want anybody to feel like they have to do something.
I love that.
But I do have these people who will grab, they'll grab the 50s if they're trying to do some weighted step ups or something like that. I'm like, okay, but this is on you.
Yeah. And even when you don't put RX up on the board, people are just so hardwired that they'll ask you what the weight's supposed to be, outside of what they should actually do. It's if you did write an RX for this workout, what would it be? I'm not going to tell you that,
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
so
exactly.
How long is that class? Is it an hour also?
It is. Yeah. Yeah. So we spend a little bit of time warming up and then we get into the workout. Ends up being about 40 minutes, after all that. So I've been doing that at T1 since June of 23. So it's been my class since then. I picked it up from Matt before me, and that felt like big shoes to fill because I know everybody really enjoyed Matt. But I'm really enjoying it.
That's awesome. So Kate, how long have you been doing CrossFit in general? When did you get started?
I started with CrossFit in 2017. I started, I live in Media, so Broad Street CrossFit is close to here. And that's where I started, and I got a great start there. I always say CrossFit kind of changed my life, and then it gave me this confidence that I didn't know I was missing in my life. So it was a really good experience. So I started there in 2017.
That's really cool. What were you doing anything for fitness before that? You gained all this confidence. Were you not working out before?
That's a great question. I was, but in a different capacity. I think I played sports kind of all through high school as a kid. But I don't think I ever felt like an athlete. I didn't stick with anything for too long, but when my oldest was about 2, was at a New Year's Eve party, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, let's do a sprint triathlon." And I was like, "Yes. Okay, let's go." And that kind of started what I consider more of my fitness journey. So I did triathlon for a while, but I had young kids, and then that it got to
Wait,
be
hold on. But
challenging to do.
When was that again? And like when you said you started CrossFit in 2017, when was like the first sprint
Oh,
triathlon?
right. So like 2005.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she's 18 now. So
Nice.
yeah. So about 2005, that was when that started. Yeah. So I did those for a little while, but training three modalities at one time was challenging with little kids. So then I just kind of went with running for a while.
Mhm.
And that was fun. I enjoyed that, doing some distance running, but then I got into CrossFit and changed my life.
So what was the distances on the sprints? Is it like what's the full triathlon first, I guess?
Oh gosh, those are long ago questions. Let's see. So
Deep
full
buried
triathlon.
memories.
Oh my gosh, really digging. What is that swim? Like 2.4 miles, maybe?
Oh
Um,
man, I have no idea. I could guess the running distances because it's probably a marathon or some kind of half. I know nothing about
yep.
swimming, so you could drop whatever numbers on me, and I'm going to go along.
That's what I'm thinking. Is it a 2.4 mile swim, a marathon, and gosh, I don't remember what that bike is. It's been a long
some
time.
far,
I know.
some far bike.
Yeah, very far. Many miles. Yeah. So I never got into those Ironman distances. I kept it at sprint or I don't remember all the words for it anymore. That
They
that
have,
next
yeah,
distance up.
I know they have a little bit lower, a little bit higher, stuff like that. Foos over from Westchester were just talking about doing one today. He's telling the
Yeah.
master's class, he's like, he's going to sign up for this triathlon. And I'm like, oh man, how comfortable are you with swimming? He's like, there's actually no swimming. He's like, and you actually don't run in it. It's kind of more like a joke triathlon thing. I was like, all right, bro, leave me out of your old man stuff, whatever you guys got going on. He says
That's
it's some
great.
tradition with some place that he goes to. But how comfortable
Okay.
with you with swimming when you were doing the sprints? Like, did you train that one? Did you have experience?
I mean, I started training specifically for the swim. I didn't have a lot of swimming experience. I dove for a little while in high school, but I never swam. So that was new for me and challenging. And open water swimming is that's a whole different beast. You can swim laps in a pool. It's one thing. You've got the end to
Yeah.
hang on to or the rope if you need it. But like it's a whole different thing when you're in the open water. So the first swim was in the Schuylkill, which is wild. It's I don't know. I just have a put my head down and go.
Cool.
So it worked. It was interesting.
So did you start to feel like an athlete more when you were doing those?
I guess so. I think that was probably that turning point for me. Sure. I'm yeah, I don't know. I think it becomes it's a mindset thing. Do you where's that line,
Right.
and probably that was it for me.
Yeah.
And then knowing that I continued, it didn't just stop like, oh, I'm not doing triathlons anymore, so I'm not an athlete anymore. It really became who I am.
Right. It's cool. So what was the next step? Like you kept doing them for a little bit and then you were like, okay, training all three is a little bit much. Like what did you go from there as far as exercise?
So then I just kept running and I met a friend when that 2-year-old became a 5-year-old and went to kindergarten. I met a friend, a fellow mom, and she was a runner. She was an ultra runner, and she kind of got me into that a little bit more. So I started running those smaller distances, nothing over marathon distance, but 25K and things like that. And
what's your
enjoyed that.
PR distance? What's the farthest you've ever run?
Oh, furthest I've ever run. Well, I paced her, my friend Amy. I paced her in a 50-mile run in Bryce Canyon in Utah.
Cool.
So that was actually pacing her in that race was my actual longest distance that I ran, which was something like 17 miles. That's a lot.
That's cool, man. Like, what was that experience like? Like pacing someone. Did you guys take breaks? Did you do the whole loop with her?
I didn't do the whole thing. No, she picked me up at the end for the last 17 miles. So I hung around, for part of the day waiting for her to get to me. And, she's fueling on the go. She gets to, to an aid station where I'm waiting for her. We're fueled up. We've gone to the bathroom, ready to go and tackle this last leg. It starts to get cool. It starts to get dark. I remember being nervous about snakes. He's not a fan of snakes. So I was like, okay, I have to be on for paying attention for snakes. And there were no snakes. We were okay, but that was something that had really crossed my mind, something to worry about. But it was a really neat experience. It's so, that feeling of accomplishing something really challenging feels really good.
Yeah, that's like one of the reasons why people do all those things, right? Like, I'm going to go do something that I never thought I could before. That would be, P.S., that would be a great episode title. There were no snakes.
I love that.
People dive in and like find out what that really means, So you said that like when you start something, right? Like you're able to just put your head down and like dive into it. But like running those long distances, I think my PR distance back when I was a wrestler is like 15K. And most of that's just because it was on a trail and I could like look at something. Like, I don't know. I got so bored of the music. I switched to podcasts and like none of that was working. Like, where does your mind go in that time period? Were you a music listener? Were you alone with your thoughts? Like, what did you do when you were running like the 17 miles?
Yeah, that's tricky. Mostly thinking about her. But yeah, I shorter distances, I'm a music person, but when I get into that long stuff, it's more about kind of focusing inward, but then also really just being present. And Bryce Canyon is gorgeous.
Right.
And to being able to see a part of the country that I'd never seen before it was such an experience. So really a lot of that time ended up being just taking in the scenery and really just trying to be present, right? If you spend the whole time thinking about, oh my gosh, I have this much left, how much longer, it turns into a spiral. So instead, I'm going to appreciate this beautiful countryside that I don't see.
Right. Like I'm always telling people that in workouts and stuff, like, especially when like the open comes up, like, don't panic. That is going to skyrocket your heart rate. And then it's a wrap. We can just end this right now. It's over,
Right.
So,
yeah.
How did you find CrossFit then? Like you keep running, training for that a little bit. When does CrossFit come into the picture?
My brother-in-law was the first one of our family to start CrossFit. So he was going to explode. That worked for him. And then slowly my sister went and their kids went and they kept talking about it. And I knew it was something I was going to love. I was sure of that right away, but just kind of had to find the right time in my own life and, finances to make that happen. Hindsight is you understand, everybody that can sometimes be a thing like, oh, but it costs so much money. But like, man, it's so valuable and worth it that it's,
right.
If I knew that years ago, I probably would have started sooner. But yeah, so that was kind of the gateway was my brother-in-law. And then they moved over to Broad Street and I joined them there. And then that was I just fell in love.
Do you remember what your first workout was?
Oh, I don't. That's a really good question. And a lot of people know that answer for sure. I don't.
I remember the format. I remember some of the movements. I don't remember like the exact thing though.
Mm-hmm.
I have like two kind of experiences because I first was exposed to CrossFit when I was in high school. The owner of Generation, like I went to Haverhill Horsham, that's out by T1. And the owner of Generation was coming there as our football like strength conditioning coach. And so we were doing like high school gym football versions of CrossFit workouts in 2009 and stuff like that. So I don't remember what the first thing that we did was. I remember doing cleans and stuff like that. But then in my adult life, when I first went to an affiliate, we did some kind of like interval deadlift, toe to bar, wall. And it took me out for like 3 days. I remember hinging, squatting pattern. I mean, that's like kind of classic CrossFit right there, hinging, squatting pattern, plus a little bit of core. I was definitely jacked up in the midline for a little bit, but I was hooked. I was right in, Do you love it from the beginning or did you like take a little bit of time? Like when did you sign up for a membership? How long was it between your first time doing a CrossFit class and like you getting a membership?
3 seconds. It was like, let's go. Like, this is fun. This is hard. This is challenging me. This makes me feel a way I've never felt before. Let's go.
Yeah. And so it becomes like, you don't even need to verbalize it. Like you get that feeling of being an athlete and you're just diving into it. What was like your go-to movements when you first started CrossFit? Like, what did you first gravitate towards?
Oh, well, I know that I spent a lot of time working on pull-ups and toes to bar because that gymnastics movements are more challenging for me. So I didn't, I spent a lot of time working on those because I really wanted that. But I always have loved a dumbbell snatch and like definitely gravitate towards that.
Speaking of my soul with that. Dumbbell snatch,
Yeah. So
it's a great go-to in a workout, whatever. I'm thinking about like, what else can I add to this? Just make it a little bit more, like my athletes out there, don't listen to this. You don't need to warm up a whole lot. You can kind of self warm up with that, and like just on the dumbbell there, but keep going.
yeah. Let's see. I think I'd probably had a little bit of experience. Before I joined Broad Street, I was working out with my brother at another local gym. So it wasn't CrossFit, but it was that similar kind of a workout. So I'd had like a tiny bit of exposure there that was, things like kettlebell swings. And it was like, that's a movement I felt like I could do. I felt confident and strong doing those. So I was definitely, those were something that was fun for me. And then it's kind of changed over time. Like what am I wanting to work on? What are the things that I'm like wanting to tackle?
Yeah.
Versus what am I good at, and kind of, balancing those two.
Did you have any experience with like weightlifting, like squatting, cleaning, anything like that before you came to a CrossFit gym?
No, not really. No.
How was that like first exposure?
So empowering.
Hell yeah.
So freaking empowering. Yeah. Yeah. To be able to deadlift a lot of weight is like, I am fucking strong and it feels so good.
Right. I love that. So we talked about you being able to dive into stuff like sports, different activities, hobbies. What was your relationship like on the other side of things? We know that like exercise and going to the gym is half the battle, but the rest is like in the kitchen and your relationship with food and diet. Like, tell us about that going back to like high school and young Kate.
Oh gosh, yeah. That's been quite a journey, and food's always been a thing that's been in the forefront of my thinking. When I was about 13, an episode of The Wonder Years inspired me to become a vegetarian.
Let's go.
So I experimented with that for a long time. And then eventually discovered that I actually like meat and went back to that somewhere in my 20s. I was a nurse for a long time. And about the same time I became a nurse and I was working in long-term care, I had kids and I wanted to like do better with nutrition. So like I had grown up relatively healthy mindset, starting out as a vegetarian. There was like those years of being, 19 where I like worked at Friendly's and I ate an awful lot of ice cream and, it was kind of a yucky experience. Had some time period in there where I was like, oh, I probably need to lose some weight here. Like, oh, let me experiment with Weight Watchers or South Beach diet or, various things that never really stuck. They never stuck with me. So, they were like, okay, this did the job, but it didn't become like a part of me.
Right.
And so then when I was working as a nurse and starting to have kids, I was way more interested in how do I do this better. Right. And that was kind of where the real passion for it started to come in, like learning, hey, how do I want to feed my kids? That's the best for them. And that just turned into this kind of constant learning, educating myself experience, about, what foods are good for you, what are bad, like learning, trying to weed through so much information that's out there.
Right.
And that's kind of where that passion came from.
That's awesome. I love the way you kind of like put that, right? Like diets fail so much for so many people out there because it's especially in their mindset, something that they're doing and not someone that they're becoming or someone that they are, when you just eat a certain way, like especially whole unprocessed foods, right? Like that just becomes who you are after a while. You develop the habits to actually make sustainable change. And then that's long lasting. when you do something that's like, all right, for this next 90 days, I'm only going to do this. It's hard to maintain that instead of just recreating like better habits, for the long term.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's my habits, and owning that are so important.
Right.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
had you ever done any coaching or teaching yourself to other people before you got to CrossFit? Like how new to you was that?
That was very new, and it was quite an interesting experience. I wouldn't have thought of myself as somebody who could do that at all. I mean, maybe on a small scale with children, but being in a room full of adults commanding attention and explaining what they need to do and teaching them how to do it and making sure they're doing it safe was a whole different experience for me. But it was really cool. That's like where another piece of confidence came in for me, because I had no choice. Here I am in front of a room of people.
Right.
Let's go.
CrossFit classes is just that trial by fire, right? Just throw them in.
Yeah, for sure.
So how you said that you've been coaching the group classes also, like how long have you been doing that? Is that like same time frame or a little bit newer, a little bit older?
So I started coaching CrossFit in January of 22. That was my first coaching experience. It was a great learning experience. And I learned a lot in that space. Really enjoyed just kind of learning as I'm teaching and, getting better every day. And it's a really, until you experience an athlete who's having a specific challenge, you might not know how to handle it or how you're going to handle it. But then, somebody comes to you and they say like, oh, hey, I'm struggling with this, or, hey, I need this modification. And you're figuring things out and you learn, researching and, hey, how am I going to do better for my members?
Right.
It's a pretty cool experience.
That's one of the most rewarding parts, right? Like you get with a problem that you can try to go solve, with someone, for someone, and all those things in the middle. So it's a fulfilling experience as well as for both sides.
Yeah, for sure. They find that they're successful doing this thing, and you found a successful cue that enabled them to do that thing.
Right. Making changes in people's lives. It's awesome. So what's your favorite thing to coach, or your favorite kind of workout? Or if you have a favorite workout, like girl workout or anything like that, what is it?
Oh,
people?
That's a really good question. You know what is wild? Karen is a terrible workout. 150 wall balls for time. That is a terrible workout.
Yeah.
But it's simple. And what I like about it is that there's not a whole lot of coaching to do in that. It is head down, you just go. But obviously there's coaching, making sure there's good form and moving well in that squat, in that thruster movement, hitting that target. There's some things to think about for sure. But what is really neat to coach in that moment, in that kind of a workout, is the just like being present and digging deep and just going. And that's a whole different thing,
Right.
That's the thing that I think a lot of people are missing. They can work out, they show up to the gym, they can work out, but learning how to dig deep and that, yes, the mindset is a thing.
Yeah, how to make the next stride, the next leap, right? Like you're here, how do you get to a little bit above,
Yeah, you have to learn how to push through that pain and push through the discomfort and the mental, oh my gosh, how many do I have left? And also learning to count, because I don't know about you, but I struggle to count sometimes. I'm a whiteboard girl. I need help counting.
Hilarious. I always like either bring out the poker chips or like write stuff on the whiteboard if I'm in a workout that like calls for it. But half time I abandon it halfway through,
Yeah.
I have so much other panic mode stuff going on. I have no time to worry about the board. One of my least favorite things to experience in a class is when you're like, you have like a lot of reps of something, either like a power clean, a shoulder to overhead, a wall ball, and you hear that you're the first person to drop whatever it is. Oh, that's such a demoralizing feeling. Like the example of Karen, like people might open up with big sets and banging them out, and then you get to like 20 and drop, and you hear everyone else going for a long time afterwards. It's like, oh man, I'm gonna be here for a while.
I hear you, but maybe like let's flip that around, because maybe you're the smart guy who didn't go
Maybe.
out too hot.
Maybe. I've been around some fit people doing wall balls, so I don't know. Usually it's just I'm just getting destroyed. So now tell us about nutrition coaching, right? When does that start? When is that before, after CrossFit coaching? What like flipped the switch for you and made you want to get into that?
So there was a little bit of the working in long-term care as a nurse and not being excited about what we were feeding our elderly population. There was a little bit of the I had kids and I want to feed them well. And then when I did get to CrossFit, there was a challenge. Nutrition challenges pop up at gyms all the time, right? Because that's the foundation of CrossFit. We know how important that is. So I had an experience. I guess we did kind of a zone nutrition challenge at the gym. Learning from the coach there who was running that challenge and kind of getting really excited about it. So all of those things, sort of the timing of how they all fell together was like, hey, this is really cool and this is really important. I wasn't excited about the way we were doing, like I said, like handling the elderly population at the end of life. And I kind of realized that I wanted to get to healthcare and to wellness from a preventative place, from a food is medicine place, from a, hey, we can actually heal our bodies place, not a, we just take a, yes, exactly. Right. And so I wanted to be a part of that because that was really important to me. I've always been a caregiver. I've always had an interest in, I remember one of the greatest Christmas presents I ever had was from my Uncle Scott. He was a paramedic and he gave me scrubs that he fit to my size and all the stuff, a cap, and even made like a name tag. And it was like Kate pretending to be a nurse then, which was really cool.
Right. Shout out to Uncle Scott.
Yes, for sure. So, there's always been that in me, and this was how I wanted to do it. So at some point, I guess I started my nutrition education piece in, it was 2018 was probably when I started it. And it was just really like, this is how I want to attack this.
So what were the steps? Like, what did you go through? Who did you first work with? Who were you first teaching to?
It was an interesting time for sure. So I went through my nutrition program, the Nutritional Therapy Association, which is it's a little bit more holistic, functional medicine kind of place. That's where my education kind of came from. And I finished my course in January of 2020.
Woo, great time.
So that was terrible timing to start a business.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was kind of wild. I was at that time also still working as a nurse in a pediatric office. And I just kind of, because of the awkward timing of everything, it just had to kind of be what it was. So it was, okay, I thought I was going to be able to see people in person, but I can't do that. Okay, so now how do I turn this business that was supposed to be, an in-person visit? So, I really like that personal component of being with somebody.
Yeah.
So how do I turn this into an online kind of business? And so it evolved from there. Coaching, CrossFit gyms came then. And so these pieces just kind of layered and happened in a way that kind of allowed for, okay, here I am coaching at a CrossFit gym. I can bring in my nutrition to the gym. So you got some clients from there. And it just slowly rolled. And now it's got some really good momentum and it's freaking awesome.
So like we talked about through text, right? Say I'm a person that is like on day 0 wanting to make a healthier change and make my health a priority, starting right now. What advice or what's like one thing you would tell them that they can get started on?
I would say if I was just talking to kind of everybody, not working one-on-one with somebody, the everybody advice is, like you got to get away from the processed stuff. I would say learn to read nutrition labels, or stay away from nutrition labels. See what you can do with feeding yourself and your family from whole foods as best as possible. Because it's just it's that packaged stuff is full of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, just outer perimeter stuff that will go bad for people out there. Those are ways to think about it,
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like if it sits in your fridge all week and you're going to want to throw it out by the end of the week or so, that's the stuff you need to be eating.
Yeah.
If you think about it, if it can sit on a shelf for a long time, I mean, what's that got to take to be able to do that? And then you really want that in your body?
Right. For the long term.
Yeah. 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 That stuff builds up.
So if someone wants to work with you, where is the next place they can find you? Are you going to do any workshops? How do they start to work with you? Like, give us information on that.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, right now I'm running nutrition challenges at CrossFit T1 in Willow Grove. So, that's one place to find me.
Is that open to or is that members only there?
Yeah, no, we can bring in anybody. Yeah. I mean, it's great because the components of the challenge include, workouts. So if you've got your own gym, that's fine. But it's great to be able to access. We've got a great recovery room at T1, which is always part of the challenge because that's so, so beneficial for you. The sauna, the cold plunge.
Yeah.
So challenges, I'm definitely open to running challenges at other gyms. So, hey, you got a gym and you need some nutrition challenges and you need a coach there.
I'm your
girl. That's right.
What's the challenge at T1 right now like entail outside of just workouts? Like, is there like macro goals? Like, how do you gear it?
I have had a conversation with everybody who's taking part in the challenge, and we set a nutrition goal for each person because I don't want to do a blanket, do this.
Right.
Because it's really tricky. Everybody's life is different. There are people who want to and can track macros and just follow a specific, eat this many protein, this much protein, this much carbs, this much fat, these calories, get that in a day. I am good. They like to do that. And there are people who, busy parents who tracking is like not a realistic thing or, so I've had a conversation with all of them about, hey, what works for you? Maybe we start with just a protein goal. Maybe we start with a protein and a veggie goal. Like, let's just work on that. I like to always focus on what are we going to do, not what are we going to stop doing, what are we going to take away. I'd rather just focus on, hey, let's get enough protein and veggies in you. That fills you up pretty good.
Right.
If you're eating the quantity there, you might not have as much room or desire for all that other stuff that you've been eating that, that isn't necessarily ideal.
I love that.
So, yeah, so there's that. So everybody has their own goal. And then the rest of the focus is all the other lifestyle stuff that's so important. Because that's where I come from in my practice. I can't just talk to you about nutrition because it's a whole lifestyle. Are you sleeping? Are you doing enough mobility? Are you taking time to recover? All those things, that's important in the whole big picture.
Right. The core tenets of like health and well-being outside of just the four walls of any gym, no matter where that be, or any kitchen also. There's a whole other side. I think people really miss out on the recovery and sleeping side of health
for sure
all the time. It's something that I've been like keying in on over the past like 18 months or so. All right. So last two questions I have for you, right? First up, a little bit of a goofy one. Probably saw this on the Instagram already. Tell me, what do you think is the most impressive / hardest to attain? I want to start asking it like that. 400-pound front squat, sub 6-minute mile. As a runner, you know how difficult that can be. And then what was the other one? Or 10 strict ring muscle ups. Which one's the hardest?
That's tricky. They're all hard. I mean, I would go 400-pound front squat.
And I'll throw this in there too. For girls, It would be a 280-pound front squat.
Okay. Yeah, speed is a real challenge for me, and having that power. So if that's what we're talking, then probably I'm going to go sub 6 minute mile.
Telling people, man, that's harder than they think. Just because
Yeah,
the fittest people that you know can do it doesn't mean it's just easy, you know?
that's right.
But I
Yeah.
mean, the weights are heavy too, though. And then last question for you. So, like, what are you most hungry for? What's your biggest goal right now?
I'm ready to be strong as fuck.
Let's go.
Um, yeah, I'm really ready and excited to do some hard work in some big lifts. I'm a sucker for a clean.
Huh.
So I'd love to. I've hit a 150, which is it's got a ways to go, and that's something I'd like to do.
I love
I'm also like, I want to learn the gymnastic stuff better. I want to get stronger at that as well, but I'm ready to be strong.
Let's go. Well, that is a goal after my own heart. And all the listeners out there, I think will be able to appreciate that too. Kate, it's been a great episode. Thanks for sitting down and chatting with me. You have any last thing to say to the people?
I'm just excited to work with anybody who is interested. So at the Nourish Mentality is where you can find me, or the nourishmentality.com. I love to talk food. I love to talk CrossFit. I also love to talk lifestyle. So yeah.
Guys, go check her out. Hit her up on those different Instagrams and websites, man. Dogs, we're going to get out of here. Peace.